Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Virtual Sage Apprentice Workshop. We would absolutely love to have met you in person, but unfortunately, as we're coming to the end of the pandemic, we're going to do this one virtually, but fingers crossed for next year. We're going to talk to you a little bit today about what a day in the life of a Sage Apprentice is like, and also talk to you a little bit about employability, giving you some tips and techniques for interviews and CV and so forth. Can we move to the next slide, please, Lisa? You're probably wondering who we all are, so I'll start with myself. My name is Vicky Rowland, and I'm the Early Careers Talent Acquisition Partner. What that means is I help young people through their careers at Sage. Hannah, what about you?
Hi, I work in product marketing, and what we do is sort of look at user research, user data, hold focus groups, and try to find a product that's right for them.
Sounds pretty cool. Christian, what about you?
So I work in the web team, and what I do is I look at improving the ways of working for all the different PR teams, and yeah, that's what I do.
And that sounds really cool, and definitely way above my level for sure. I'm not very techie at all. Lisa, how about you?
Hi, I work in the talent acquisition team, and I'm helping out on everything Apprentice at the moment. So that's everything from the levy to the apprenticeship programme management, and working with our colleagues to help them with their upskilling.
Thanks, Lisa. And last but by no means least, Nushka, what about you?
Yep. So I just joined a couple months ago, 4 months. I want to say 4 months ago, and I'm working as a talent acquisition graduate, where I work on engagement events for schools and universities. And for our upcoming early careers intake, I'm going to be heavily involved in the recruitment as well.
I find it hard to believe that yourself and Hannah have only been here since October, since last summer. I think you already feel like part of the furniture. So
I think because there's so much to do in the company and everyone is so welcoming, you can't help yourself but get involved.
I hate to say the word Sage family, but it does feel like that at times, doesn't it? It's a very nice environment. On to the next slide, please, Lisa. So we have got a brief agenda for you today. Obviously, we're going to talk to you just a little bit about what is Sage, who are Sage and what do we do. Christian and Hannah are going to share their experiences of a day in the life of a Sage apprentice, both different aspects of working from home versus working in the office, as we allow all employees to sort of own the way they work on a flexible way of working. And then myself, Lisa, and Nush are going to talk to you a little bit about your CVs, interviews and techniques, and then we'll recap the session at the end. We understand that this isn't a live session, so you're not going to be able to ask questions, but of course you can come to the booth and we'll make sure that all of your questions from this session are answered. So who are we? There's our lovely offices there in Cobalt. Sage are a software company providing accounting, finance, people and payroll solutions to small and medium businesses, accountants and partners. And we have over 13,000 amazing colleagues working for us across the globe, which is a pretty high number, isn't it? And I have the privilege of knowing most of those people as well, which is really awesome. This is our shiny new office in Newcastle or North Tyneside, depending which part of Newcastle you're from. It's called Cobalt and it's in a business park and it's very well equipped, isn't it? Now, Christian, you have the privilege of being in this office all the time, don't you? What are your thoughts on it?
No, it's really nice. The desk setup's nice. You get the two brand new monitors, which is really nice. There's a Starbucks downstairs, which is really nice as well. And it's just it's a nice motivation driving in and seeing the nice new shiny offices, as you say.
And the all-important question for me is, because we know that I'm obsessed with food, what's the food like in Cobalt? Are there lots of different options that you can go out and get?
Yeah, there's loads of options. I will cover them later in my sort of day in the life, but there's loads. There's a Tesco nearby, there's Nando's, McDonald's, there's loads, so it's really good.
Sounds good to me. And as we move on to the next slide, you will see some of our other incredible offices. As you might have guessed by my dodgy accent, I'm actually based in London Bridge, and we've got the Shard. We have floors 13 and 17, as you can see there. It's a very cool building. Now, Hannah is also based down south with me. And Hannah, you've been into London Bridge and Manchester, haven't you? What was your experience in the office?
It honestly felt like I was winning. The London office, because it's in a glass building, there's so much light and you can see the entire city. So you do feel like you're on top of the world a little bit, but it kind of motivates you to sort of start working. It doesn't feel like an office at all because you don't have set desks, it's all open plan. So there's a nice sort of vibe there. Everyone just talks to one another. There's a little community. The Manchester offices are just as nice, but it's really cold.
So you got to take.
I was surprised when I went up to Manchester. You know, I had a sweatshirt on, but I needed thermal wear. It was so cold.
Okay, so you've just put me off going to the Manchester office until about April when it really warms up. So thank you for that little insight. I think we've got a picture of the Manchester office on the next slide, and that's actually in Salford Quays. And the only office in the UKI that I haven't been to is Dublin, but I absolutely love it. It looks very space age, doesn't it? And exactly what you would expect a tech company to be like. So yeah, very excited to visit Dublin, hopefully later this year. So as we move on to the next slide, this was the day that we got all of the Newcastle graduates and apprentices together, and we just enticed everybody into the building with donuts, which worked very well, didn't it, Lisa? And it was great.
Definitely.
You can see some of the cool spaces there. The photo in the middle is the auditorium, which is a really nice open space for collaboration. We don't use it anywhere near as much as we should, but I think we will start to, because it's just great to get, as you can see there, sort of about 50 people together quite easily. The photos with the donuts are in the canteen, as Christian was saying. It's quite a cool space. And we've got the very famous LED screen top left there, with all the apprentices in front of, and that represents the Angel of the North and other things that associate with Newcastle throughout the year. So yeah, very, very cool space. I'm a huge fan.
That looks great at Christmas as well, with the huge Christmas tree on it.
Lovely, wasn't it? Yeah, we definitely had the best Christmas tree. It's actually the biggest screen, biggest LED screen in Europe. So it spans 4 floors, so it's very tall. So you've got to come along to the office just to see this incredible stuff we're talking about. On to the next slide, please. I think that takes us in quite nicely to what a typical day in the life of an apprentice looks like. And in this case, it's Hannah Worrell, and she is a product marketing apprentice. So Hannah, over to you, please.
Hi, everyone. So I work in the UK product marketing team. My actual title is Product Marketing Manager Apprentice. Sounds really complicated, but it's not as difficult as it sounds. So what we do is conduct market research, and that will include sort of looking at where our product would fit into the market, what other products there are in the market, competitor analysis, pricing models, and holding loads of different varied qualitative sort of research groups. So that would be focus groups with actual clients, meeting with actual clients, spending time with our clients to understand how they use our products, what their pain points are, what they like, what they would like. Also liaising with the HMRC, because this year we have a lot of new legislations coming out, and we want to ensure that our product sort of meets their requirements, so it's easier for bookkeepers and accountants to do their day job by using our products, and ensuring it's all compliance proof too. So it's quite interesting. It is very interesting. I think working with my team and other departments makes it quite fun. So that is me. And then I spend 7 hours a week doing my apprenticeship. So I break it down to 2 half days. On Wednesdays, I will do my reading and look at my tasks. So I'll see what my task includes so that I have time for my next session on Friday to gather all my research and my data, connect with the right people to get some information. And on Friday's session, my tutor hosts what he calls lunchtime bite size. And I meet with external apprentices who are doing the same course, and we discuss our projects together, how we can help one another out, and our tutor goes through models explaining the theories, how it works. And it's actually nice also connecting with external apprenticeships to learn about how they use the course that I'm doing, but in a different environment. So that's really good for me. And then I work remotely, so I work from home. I live about 2.5 hours away from the London office. I visit as much as I can, but I don't actually feel sort of isolated working from home. There's so much going on in the company. It's great. We have virtuals, we have the team chat, but we also have informal WhatsApp groups that are non-work related. So I don't ever feel as though I'm out of the loop with anything, or I do get a bit of FOMO when I see pictures of people in the London office, or especially the Newcastle office, because there's a lot happening there. But everyone sort of gets everyone else involved. So it honestly does feel like I'm working with friends, and that's perfect, especially because where I live is quite boring. So work life is fun.
I'm just enjoying reading some of your lunchtime activities as well, particularly play with puppy. That made my day when we were puppy earlier. Great.
So I'm fostering, so I'm trying to train the puppy when I'm working. I can't play with her, so she has a routine, and then lunchtime I play with her. But I also do embroidery.
Oh wow,
That's so nice. Everything in your like lunch break is so wholesome, Hannah.
It's because I'm very fidgety. I hate
Aw.
sitting still. I have to, I have to be doing something, or I get really sort of bored, or I become a brat, basically. That's when I become very naughty. So
you're very
I have to
good. I think
do
mine
it.
comprises of opening up Deliveroo app and ordering burger and chips, and that's about as far as it goes. So I'm going to take a leaf out of your book for sure.
I think it's great here because there's not that many places to order from. So
Right, I'm going to come and move in with you, not just for the puppy, but also for the diet. And obviously, you've sort of come into the apprenticeship, I guess, through an unusual route in comparison to some. So can you tell us a bit about what you did? Because you actually went through uni, didn't you? And then you wanted to almost retrain.
So big background. After college, I was a bit of a naughty child, and this is going. I'm 33 years old, by the way. So this is about over a decade ago. I did grow up in Africa, but after college, I was really naughty, and my mum sent me back to live with my father in Malawi. So whilst I was there, I did an international baccalaureate for about a year and a half. And one of the programs I was also on was outdoor survival training. So if you get lost in the jungle, call me. I can help you out. So I know how to build. And then I went straight to university where I did English and art, and I was aspiring to become a teacher, but my mum was a teacher, and all her friends and herself said no, it's not for you. And I did do some sort of work experience in schools, and actually it just wasn't for me. So I moved to London after university, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I became a contractor, project coordinator for varied companies. I moved out of London back to the Midlands. COVID hit and I couldn't find a role. So I thought maybe if I upskill and do a master's, I did it in design thinking, but COVID was still around and I just could not find a role. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew was that I wanted to take the next step up from being a project coordinator to entering more of a leadership role. But I needed support and I needed the confidence to do that. And then my mum actually put me forward for this role. So thanks, Mum. And she said, look, it'll be a great environment for you. And I was still unsure because I thought, oh, I've got a master's, I've got a degree. Am I really allowed to do an apprenticeship? I felt like imposter syndrome, or that I was stealing somebody else's opportunity. And I was really honest about this within my interview stages. And Sage were really brilliant. They assured me, no, Hannah, you're fine. You can do it. You're not stealing anyone's opportunity. You're not overqualified or underqualified, overskilled or underskilled. I had my goals and they said, we'd like to help you with your goals. And that was really, really good for me. I felt really supported. So, yeah, so I'm learning how to become a great leader through my apprenticeship, and my team are really great with giving me tips and advice when presenting. So I'm getting there. In about 2 years, I'll be a proper manager now.
I think it's a really important story, actually, Hannah, is that when people think of apprenticeships, they think straight out of school into, I guess, quite a menial role. It's not true, is it?
No, I thought I had to be under 25. And I was still worried. I was still worried. I was like, I'm in my 30s doing an apprentice. But then when I came to Sage, I met other people who were older or my age, and they're still learning. They still enrolled on courses, and everyone just wants the best for you here. So it doesn't matter what you're doing, what level you're at. Everyone just encourages you. In fact, they encourage you to ask questions. If you don't ask questions or ask for help, you get a bit of a scolding because everyone just wants the best for you. Everyone's just elevates one another, which is really good. So it's a positive environment, and that's exactly what I needed.
No, it's really interesting to hear your perspective. Thank you so much, Hannah. What we are going to do is we're going to share people's LinkedIn after this in a few slides' time. So you will be able to contact Hannah directly if anything is of interest or you want to learn more. Thank you. So moving on from level 6 apprenticeship to Christian, who's doing level 4 web operations. Correct me if I'm wrong, Christian.
No, that's right.
Brilliant. And like I said earlier, you are working in the office a lot, so your perspective is going to be quite different. So I'll pass over to you.
No worries. I can't actually see this shared presentation, so Lisa, if you just want to keep up with me, and I'll go off the ones I've opened up here.
Okay.
So, day in the life of a web operations apprentice. So, as a web operations apprentice, what I do is, I mentioned earlier, I work with about 6 other teams, and all these teams sort of make up our internal website. And for this, each team sort of, they do their day-to-day tasks, but we look at how can they get better at that. So, for example, response time to issues or things like that, or web performance, we look at how that can be improved in different ways of sort of restructuring teams or just different things like that. There's a few different tactics, and these act as smaller projects with each team, and that's why I'm sort of undergoing a level 4 project management apprenticeship. So things that I'm learning in my training with my provider, I can sort of adapt this into these smaller projects or even take lead in some cases. And it totally has made the difference. Learning some things, sort of, how you kick a project off in terms of sort of what you need before you go, pulling people in at different stages, and all the things that go along with that. It's been so important in my role in progressing myself as well as the team as a whole, which is really great. My background, I was born in Newcastle. I've always been here. I've not really been anywhere else. Before joining Sage, when I was in school, I ran 2 of my own businesses. One was selling high-end designer shoes and clothes and things like that. And then I realized I liked the whole website side of it more. So I started building websites for clients. I sort of stretched out a bit more. I started designing logos, brochures, and things like that for quite a lot of different clients, and that's where I sort of found my passion for web design and things like that. And then this role sort of came up, and I went for it. In my A levels, I studied business, geography, and sport. And if you think of what I'm doing now, I mean, geography doesn't really tie in, sport doesn't tie in, business does a bit, but it's sort of just like it doesn't. In school I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, and like I say, when the pandemic hit and I started pushing these website designs a bit more, that's when I sort of found myself. And to learn how to do all that before I joined Sage, I was doing online courses, just spending hours on hours sort of teaching myself trial and error on how to do things, watching YouTube videos and things like that. So my advice to anyone, if they know what they want to do or don't know what they want to do, just see what's out there and sort of take some courses, and you might find something that you enjoy. My role here at Sage, so like I say, I look at improving the ways of working for the different web teams. As well as that, I've also gained a new responsibility of being the admin for the digital budget. So I've got to sort of raise POs, look at invoices, move money between different quarters, and things like that. So it's quite a high responsibility to have as an apprentice, but it's good getting that experience, and I do enjoy doing it. So so that's something which I've been working quite hard on recently. And moving on, what do I get up to in the morning? So sort of this is going to be like, as I say, a day in the life. So checking my emails is the first thing I look at because purchase orders for like the budget can come through, or just keeping up to date with people and know what's going on. That's really important. So I do that every morning. I do my apprentice work. So I've got to do 20% off the job time, focus on sort of the project management side. So I block out an hour in the morning and I do something, whether that's watching a TED talk, completing one of my assignments or something like that. That's what I do in the morning. So then I've got to update my tracker with that, just to sort of say I've done that. Moving on to lunch, I see all of the Newcastle colleagues, so we all meet up for lunch and go somewhere. And I know this is the part you're interested in, Vicky, sort of explaining what I have for food. So
Yes. What
yeah,
can I eat?
so within Cobalt, there's a Tesco, so you can't go wrong with a meal deal. There's an Eat for Less, which I'm not too much of a fan of, but it's there. There's a Greggs as well, which you can't go wrong with. Nearby, there's a Nando's, which is that's only for payday. There's a Subway and there's a McDonald's. There's some other options. As well as that, within Sage, we'll have 2 cafes, one in each building, and the food's really good. I eat in Sage most days. Breakfast is nice, the lunch is nice. You can't go wrong at all. Uh, Moving on to the afternoon, I spend a lot of time in calls, sort of working with the different teams, understanding what they need, explaining how we're going to be sort of taking an approach and helping them improve. So I spend a lot of time in calls, like I say, working on the project sort of ties into that because our projects can be very like call based, sort of getting the information we need to then crack on with the work. So I do a lot of work obviously in the weekend, sorry, not the weekend, the afternoon. Um, and there I've put in there as well Starbucks. So when I'm waiting in the office, sort of on an afternoon, I do have a couple of trips down there, which can be quite pricey, even though we've got discounted prices. When you're having about 4 lattes a day, it does add up. Towards the end of the day, what I do is I have a planner how I track my work. If anyone out there isn't very organized, I'd recommend using sort of Microsoft Planner. It's really good. So I use that to keep up to date, know sort of updates, what I'm doing. And at the end of the day, like I say, I plan for the next day. So when I log on in the morning, I know exactly what I'm going to be doing. And that's sort of how I organize my tasks. I sign off any current work that day. So if there's something that I know needs kind of done, I get that done. If not, I'll update the status of that. Final check with my emails, like I say, just to make sure I've not missed anything and I'm up to date with everything going on. And after that, when I finish at 5 o'clock, I'll go to the gym. I do go to the Village Hotel, which is in Cobalt. However, there is a gym which we can access for free. I haven't been, but I'm sure that's good if you want to make use of that. And that's pretty much my day in the life. If anyone has any questions, I know we've mentioned on LinkedIn, you can add me on there. Feel free to reach out, ask anything you want, and I'm happy to spend some time with anyone, sort of letting them know more information about Sage, or if they need a hand, sort of for CVs or anything. When I've got the time, I'm here to help.
Thanks, Christian. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure that everybody watching will do. And I expect you'll probably be inundated once everybody gets LinkedIn accounts, as we're going to discuss. Christian, it just amazes me the amount of responsibility that you've had so early on in your apprenticeship. You should be really proud of yourself. Budget control isn't an easy thing, and a lot of people don't end up doing that until they're into leadership.
Yeah.
So actually, you're already smashing it by the sounds of it. So well done.
Yeah, no, it is good. It can get stressful, but it is good.
And yet you still make time to do all of these extracurricular things with early careers. For that, we are so thankful, because your insights are so valuable to people looking for work.
Yeah.
Cheers, both of you.
No worries.
So unfortunately, you're going to have to put up myself, Lisa, and Anushka for the next few slides, and we're nowhere near as fun. So I apologise in advance. We're going to talk a little bit about employability, and what we mean by that is improving your chances of seeking employment, sort of finding a role within a company that you want. Ideally for us, Sage, but we want you to take this anywhere that you are looking for. So can we move on to the next slide, please, Lisa? CV tips and techniques. I'll give you an example. So we put out a graduate role. So we have apprentices, graduates, and interns. We put a graduate role a couple of weeks ago, and I looked at the page one day, and there were 4 applications. I looked at the page the next day and there were just under 600 in the space of 3 or 4 days. So what you need to do is to make your CV stand out against all of those hundreds and hundreds of CVs we receive, and we're going to help you do that. So you choose your layout and stick to your layout. People tend to switch between fonts and paragraph sizing, and what we want to see is a nice, concise, accurate representation of your maybe work experience today, but you might not have any. And if you don't, then hobbies. I consider work experience, because if you're the captain of a football team or you perform in an orchestra, it shows to us leadership and teamwork. So always be proud of your hobbies if you haven't had a previous role, because they do transfer to the workplace. Keeping CVs simple, you know, like I say, sticking to a font is a really good way of developing your personal brand as well. And keeping it to 1 page. Now, when I say 1 page, I mean double-sided. You haven't got to try and cram it all into 1 page of A4. But anything over sort of 2 pages, double-sided, is too much, particularly when you're quite new in your career. So there shouldn't be a wealth of work experience. We're not looking for 10 years of work experience. So keep it punchy, keep it concise. And the biggest thing for me is, yes, of course, I need to look at your qualifications to make sure you've got the 5 A to C GCSE grades. But we actually have something in the video interviews that does that for us. So what I really look at is your personal profile, which tells me what you're interested in, what do you want to do, what are your objectives, what are you trying to achieve from this application, where do you want to be in the future? And that's the part that will make you stand out from the rest of the applicants. If you can really tell us why you want this role. It does mean that you might have to get a little bit creative with your CV. So if you know you're applying for product marketing manager apprentice, then you need to tailor your CV that way. Tell us about the hobbies and interests that you think relate to that. Are you applying for an apprentice tester role? Have you done some coding? If you have, even if it's a personal hobby, tell us about it. Are you applying for a developer role? Do you love video games? Do you like the way they work? Again, put it on there. Believe me, I'm a video game fan. So video game as a hobby is always good when you're applying for a tech company. When you adapt your key skills from the job spec, so when you look through that job spec and it says must be able to work as a team, make sure that's represented on your CV. Obviously, we don't want you to fabricate things that aren't true, but please do look at the job spec and say, well, I know I've got that. Make sure that's on your CV. I personally don't use lookup, so this bit isn't entirely accurate. It says some employers usually look up on your CVs. We are human and we want to treat everybody like humans, so we don't use any form of AI. We will read through your CVs, but I scan read anyway. So if I see words that are of interest, then of course it's going to stand out. There is an example shortly, and we'll show you that, of a good CV. Please never use a photo, because no disrespect, we don't care what you look like. We care what you're going to bring to Sage as a person. So what you look like is of no interest to us whatsoever. I'm sure you look lovely, but it really isn't of any interest whatsoever. You can personalize your CV by perhaps creating a little monogram at the top and just having your initials or something that stands out and makes it look really professional. But don't procrastinate too much over that. It's you've got enough to worry about in your job application processes. Bullet points work for me. I'm sure that Lisa and Mishka will agree. When it comes to work experience, education, hobbies, bullet points will just make all of that stand out. So that'd be good. And of course, you're going to have this recording that you can play back as well. So you can have a look through this presentation and use this hopefully when you're creating your CVs. We've covered doing something different to other candidates, and like I said, no photos, just the monogram. And one thing that we do giggle at, and it's not detrimental, you know, at all, but I think I had one last week, which was sparklyangel123@gmail.com. Made me giggle. Really lovely Hotmail address, but maybe you could make it your name at hotmail.co.uk instead, so you've really got that professional approach. But again, we don't care what you want to call yourself in your personal life. We'd be more than happy to take you on Sparkly Angels or not. As I said, you can go back through this and have a read through, and we're just going to skim over the surface in the interest of time. So the next slide, we're going to talk about, I can't remember, so we got LinkedIn, there we go. Now, for those of you who know me, I don't get any endorsements from LinkedIn whatsoever, but I'm a huge fan. And I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn from your very earliest careers all the way through. And reason being, it's a really good way to network with future contacts. So you might never have been in a workspace. Perhaps you've only had a paper round, but you know that you want to be the CEO of Google in 40 years' time. So what LinkedIn enables you to do, and it is a social media platform, but it's for professionals, it enables you to look at that person. Let's use Steve Hare, our CEO, as an example. Look at Steve's journey through his career. So you can say, okay, so he's been sort of CEO, he was operations before that, but what was he doing when he was my age? And you can actually look back through his education, his work history, people that have endorsed him, things he's been interested in. And what this will help you do is kind of formulate the path that you perhaps could take if you want to be the CEO of Sage in however many years' time. I have no doubt that amongst our grads and apprentices, we have future CEOs amongst the midst, maybe sitting here right now as well, because they're all so gifted.
Question.
It's never too early to have a LinkedIn account. I think Hannah and Kristen will make me right on this. It's a great way of getting noticed. So when you send that lovely CV in, you can also put on there, oh, this is my LinkedIn. And straight away, whether you're 16 years old, 45 years old, with no experience or 40 years experience in the workplace, I think, oh, wow, they've got LinkedIn. They're really putting themselves out there. That's cool. You don't have to have hundreds of contacts or, like I say, wealth experience to update your profile with. Put in your profile where you'd like to be. You know, you have interest in working for Sage because you want to be a developer or you want to be in cyber. Just make it about a projection of what you want from your future. You can start building key contacts in industries and businesses that you want. So even if you opened LinkedIn tomorrow and you had nobody else to add, you have 5 of us here that are all ready and willing to be your friends. And through that, you can then look at other people at Sage or other people in tech, anything that interests you, and start adding them as well. Nobody will reject your, it's not a friend request, but connection request, let's call it, if they're a decent person, because everybody wants to develop other people and give them opportunities. So I am pretty confident that you could add Steve Hare and you wouldn't get a rejection at Sage. I'm not saying everybody should now flood his inbox with LinkedIn requests, but if you did, I know that he wouldn't mind. List things on your LinkedIn profile that you're passionate about. Again, replicate that CV. So whatever you're putting on your CV, keep it in your LinkedIn. And like I said, things like coding, games. I mean, Christian had 2 businesses before he started at Sage. So his interest in entrepreneurship shows us, wow, business strategy and so forth. So things like that need to go on your LinkedIn profile because in effect, it's a living CV. As I said before, look up the people that have got careers that you would like in the future, check out the qualifications, previous jobs, and work out a plan how you can get where they are now. And as I said again, do not be frightened to add people from companies who you're interested in. Just say hello. Just say, I'm looking at some point to join your company, either now or 5 years' time. Can you tell me a bit about what you do? Can you tell me if I should work there? Is it a good company? And people will look at you and think, wow, what great initiative. Don't think that anybody's going to look and think, well, this is a waste of my time, because, and again, good people in good businesses will never do that. And as you can see there, we've listed all of our LinkedIn accounts there. So like I said, you've got 5 instant friends, which is great. So if you do open your LinkedIn account, feel free to add us. On to the next slide, please. I think this is where I'm going to hand over. Oh, there's an example CV here. So like I say, you can see how short and sweet it is. It's punchy. It's got headlines with a personal profile at the top. It's got the career. And even if there's just one job in there or no jobs, you could put, I'm yet to experience work. This is why I'm applying for an apprenticeship, but my hobbies include, etc., and then bullet point them. And then of course your academic is only important to us for the GCSEs to make sure that you've got the 5 9 to 4 passes to make sure that you're eligible for the qualification. And then you can see down the side there's a bit at the top where a monogram could go, so the initials or something, design something funky maybe, and then all your contact details, your interests and references. Please note that we don't take your references until you've been appointed. So You can display references on CVs. It does make things easier, but note that our team in particular would reach out to you afterwards and ask for those. So if you don't have your references now or at application stage, don't worry, you can get those further down the line. And normally a professional and a personal reference is absolutely fine. Next slide. We are coming to the end, I promise. Interview tips and techniques. Now, Lisa's going to give you a little bit of insight from her perspective into what you should and shouldn't be doing at interview.
Yeah, I shall carry on now with the interview tips. Yes, so the first thing that we always tell you to do, research the company. And again, going back to LinkedIn, have a look at the interview panel as well. You know, it's always good if you can go into your interview and you've just got a little bit of knowledge about that person. You know, if you've looked at them, you know a little bit about them. It's really useful in an interview and just shows you've done your homework, which is great. Use LinkedIn, use Glassdoor as well as a platform. It's really great to see, you know, how a company is doing, what its staff feels about it. So that's really, really useful for you to know a bit more about the company before you go in. Again, reassuring what Vicky said, it's never too early to create your LinkedIn account. So do it now. You're prepared for the future, and it makes it a lot easier just to keep adding to that as you go through your career. Really important, always be yourself. You know, I know it's difficult. Try not to be too nervous. We want to see your personality come through. You know, that we want you to be a fit for the company, but we want you to also want to join the company. So just be yourself and show your personality in an interview. You know, that's what we want to see. Always remember, everyone's human, and we've been in the same position as you. And even though, you know, we're interviewers, we still live in that position. You know, so we know what it feels like. And a good interview panel will always make you feel at ease and relaxed. They'll explain the interview to you, and we want you to enjoy yourself and have a good conversation. As you know, as difficult as it sounds, you know, we want you to enjoy that experience, you know, talking about yourself and finding out more about the company. When you're preparing for your interview, think about your key strengths and your development needs before the interview, so that you can talk about those. Always have your examples ready to be able to describe your strengths and your development needs. These questions are more than likely going to be asked in the interview, and we're going to move on to that in a moment. So if you're prepared, it's a lot easier to talk about them. And if your job description's got something in about teamwork, be able to talk about that. You know, look through the job description, look at what they're asking for, and try and match your key strengths to that, so that you can go through that and be able to talk about those if you're asked about them.
I think that's a really important point, Lisa, as well, isn't it? Everyone always thinks, right, okay, so I've got my strengths and I'm really keen to show those off. But actually, I've got development needs as well. And they used to call them weaknesses. Well, there's no such thing as a weakness anymore, is there? It's something that you can develop and the company can develop. So thinking about what you're not so good at and being transparent is a really good technique in interview, isn't it? It shows accountability too.
Definitely, that's it. You know, we're not marking anybody down because they say that. It's great that you recognise that and know that that is a weakness, but it's something that I want to develop. You know, so it's good to say.
That's exactly what I said within my interview. Was I needed to learn how to be more confident in what I'm doing, and also learn how to say no, because I wasn't very good at prioritizing, and I wanted to learn how to say, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't do that at the moment because I have such and such to do, or I can do this, but it'll take a few days. So I was very honest about where I wanted to learn how to develop, and it's worked.
Yeah, definitely. So going back to this as well. Think about your answers as well, and don't be scared in an interview if you need to ask for the question to be asked again, or you need a minute to think about it. We would rather you took a minute, thought about it, and gave us a great answer, rather than you rush into it and you're not sure about what you want to say. So if you need to take your time, that's fine. We don't mind. We want you to be able to put your best self in that interview and give us your best answer. So don't worry about that. We don't mind if you ask again. Keep eye contact throughout the interview, and you know, if you're being interviewed by more than one person, make sure that you look at everybody in the room and you know, you engage with everybody throughout the interview, and that'll help. And then prepare 2 or 3 questions to ask at the end of the interview. to ask the interview panel as well. Just think about anything that you want to know about the company. If there's something a bit different, you know, we like to hear sometimes if we get a bit of a different question at the end of an interview. But anything that you want to ask, that's your time to find out about the company. And so use that. So I'm going to talk to you now about the STAR method. A lot of interviews will be competency based and we'll use the STAR method. And if you Google that, you'll be able to find out a little bit more about it. We want to know about what you've done, not what you've done as a team. So we ask you to think about the situation. If you've got 2 or 3 situations, I'd say that you can talk about them in depth. They'll answer most interview questions. So if you prepare that, you know, don't try to have too many, but just think about 2 or 3 situations that you can talk about. So if you introduce the situation to the employer and talk about, you know, what was happening, that'll help. And then in that situation, what was your task? What did you have to do? So not as a team, what was your part of it? What were the expectations? What were the challenges that you faced in that task? And again, it doesn't matter if something was difficult, because we want to hear about how you got around it. And then what was the action that you took? How did you do it? Like I say, focus on what you did in that situation, and not what you've done as a team. We want to know all about you, and if you can explain that, that's great. And then also think about the results at the end of that. What did you get out of it with your efforts, including your compliments, the rewards and the impact? You know, is there anything that you think actually went wrong? How would you do it better next time? If you can talk about that, that'll really help you in this situation. So again, I'll say again, you only need 2 or 3 situations that you need to think about, where you can talk about the situation that you were in, the task that you had to do, the action you took, and the results, and that will really help with any interview. And again, if you look on Google, it'll be able to give you more information about the types of competency questions and the answers. But again, whilst you're doing that, just be yourself, talking about these situations, and just show the real you. I'm going to hand over to Anushka now, who will tell you a little bit more about video interviews.
100%. So, I mean, this is an interesting one because this is a pretty big part of the screening process at Sage. You know, you have to get through the video interview and then you get to the assessment center. And of course, we get so many video interviews. So how do you kind of stand out? And it's interesting because we didn't really have this. Companies in general, I think, because of COVID and because everything kind of went digital, you know, this step is whichever company you apply to will have, you know, a video interview where you're just speaking into a camera and there's no one at the other side. So it's just kind of timed and you get questions and you have some time to think and then a specific time to answer. So I think something that really helped me when I was doing this was to practice myself. So just kind of come up with hypothetical questions about, you know, just basic things that you know are going to be asked in interviews, your strengths, your development needs, and just kind of speak to a camera. So just record yourself. And it was so tough to me. It was like very cringe to watch it back. But, you know, you do see areas where, okay, here I'm talking really quickly, or here I'm doing something with my hands that's like, you know, that shows that I'm anxious or nervous, or I'm not making eye contact, I'm looking away from the camera. So I think just doing that helps so much when you kind of evaluate yourself, because you do see it back, you see what other people would be viewing when you're talking and answering these questions. So that helped a lot. And again, another thing, that a simple trick that I did was I kind of put like this really bright note next to my camera, so that, you know, even though my eyes were kind of going here and there, it would always come back to the camera. So I kind of, it felt like I was talking to a person, even though it is, you know, these things are, it's easier said than done when, you know, there's no one on the other side, but you have to kind of speak as if you are speaking to someone. And again, yeah, I also pictured like another person at the end of, at the other side. So it was kind of like an imaginary thing of like, okay, just imagine I'm talking to like a tiny person at the other end of the camera. So yeah, it was that stuff really did. And I think when you practice it, it puts you at ease when the actual video interview is happening, because this is something that's timed, and it can, you know, it just puts you at ease when you know you've done it. You've kind of recorded yourself before and you've seen how you come across on camera. I think it's easier when you're doing it in a timed setting. Um, and yeah, I think one of the most important but very underrated things is getting a good night's sleep. Some like I remember for some, you know, when I was in the application process, because I just finished my uni last year, um, when when I didn't get a good night's sleep, when I didn't feel really refreshed, it was so tough to concentrate and articulate my thoughts and kind of have that clarity of thought. So I think just making sure that you get a good night's sleep, that you're eating right, that that you feel really relaxed and fresh, like that makes so much of a difference in how you come across and how well you can kind of answer and have that flow and that confidence. So yeah, I would say these are some tips that really help me.
Really stellar advice there, isn't there? And we've actually just revamped the video interview welcome message. So hopefully that will alleviate any nerves the minute that you watch it and you realise that Sage is a completely safe space. And it's only me, Anushka and Lisa that watch these videos. So you know us now, right? There should be no nerves at all. We're friends now. We're going to be friends on LinkedIn. So it's only us watching those videos. So please just take it in your stride. The virtual recruitment process, we're going to continue virtually even post-pandemic. It works. It stops you having to find money to go into offices unnecessarily. So we're going to be holding them virtually via Teams, or we ask that you've got a laptop to take it from. If you are interested in any of the roles, all of our roles should be live by the end of February. Application on the Sage Careers website, which the link is on here that you can refer to later, as we're talking about the dreaded video interview, which hopefully isn't so dreaded now, as Anushka was laying out some pointers there, and Hannah and Christian have both been through it and survived. The virtual assessment centre is a day long, and we have a bit of fun along the way. We keep it very light. So you have a welcome session, we do a team activity, and then you do a why me presentation, which is where you tell the hiring managers why are you different to the other candidates and what makes you perfect for the role. If you're successful, you get a phone call from myself, Lisa, or Anushka, and we will tell you that you've got the role. And I remember Hannah and Christian both being elated. And then that'll be followed up with a written offer, which contains details of all of your lovely things like money, what do you get paid, holidays, and so forth. If you're not successful, you're going to get an email from us, and you're still going to get some feedback. We're going to spend 15 minutes with you just to let you know why you weren't successful. And what that hopefully does is gives you some insight into how you can develop. So the next time you apply with us, then you're successful that time. And then if you are successful, you'll join us on the 3rd of October this year for onboarding week with an absolutely fantastic cohort. We had 80 last year. Hannah and Christian both part of it, and we hope to have the same or more this year. And trust me, you'll be one of the family before you even know it. And I think that just takes us to our last slide, which, like I said, we would normally ask if anybody has any questions. But in this case, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn, or, of course, join the Early Careers booth for Sage on the day, and we'll answer everything there. So on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for attending, and thank you for your time. We look forward to seeing you at an interview soon at Sage. Bye.
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 Bye.